Listen. Close your eyes and just listen. Do you hear that? That low, rolling rumble in the distance? We've been conditioned since we were children to hear that sound and feel a sense of relief. We see the flash of lightning, we hear the crack of thunder, and our brains tell us, the hero has arrived. We've been taught that the thunder is the sound of protection, that Thor, the god of strength, is the only thing standing between us and the chaos of the giants. But what if I told you that the thunder wasn't a warning to the monsters? What if, in the halls of Asgard, that sound was actually the signal of a god losing his temper? What if the lightning wasn't a beacon of hope, but a symptom of a man who has run out of ideas? We love a hero who can swing a hammer. We love the simplicity of a blunt instrument hitting a problem until it disappears. But we are terrified of the man who knows exactly where to hit. Today, we are peeling back the gold leaf. We are looking past the statues of the mighty Thor to find a truth buried deep in the archives of the Aesir. A truth about a wall that almost cost the gods their souls, and the villain who had to lose his dignity to save their lives. Welcome back to Mythmation. To understand this conflict, we have to understand the great manager himself, Odin. Asgard was a fortress, yes, but it was a fortress built on a fundamental lie. Odin wanted security. He wanted a wall so massive, so impenetrable, that no giant could ever breach it. But Odin had a management problem. He didn't want to pay the blood price for it. He wanted a premium defense on a budget. One day, a stranger appeared, a master builder. He didn't look like a warrior, but he spoke with the confidence of an architect who could move mountains. He offered Odin a miracle, a wall finished in a single winter. One season to build what should take 1,000 years. But his price? His price was the very heart of the universe. He wanted the sun, he wanted the moon, and he wanted the goddess Freyja. Think about the stakes. He wasn't asking for gold. He was asking for the lights of the world and the goddess of life herself. Odin, in his infinite hubris, looked at the contract and smiled. He believed he could outsmart the giant. He believed the deadline was impossible and that he'd end up with a half-finished wall for free. He signed the universe's light away on a gamble. And while the gears of this cosmic catastrophe began to turn, the hero of Asgard was nowhere to be found. Thor was off fighting, swinging his hammer at ghosts, while his father was literally betting the sun on a legal loophole. As the winter set in, the gods realized they had made a terrible mistake. The master builder wasn't just an architect, he was a machine, and he had a secret weapon, a massive stallion named Svadilfari. This horse could move stones the size of houses as if they were pebbles. The wall wasn't just rising, it was screaming toward completion. And where was Thor? When the gods finally called him back, realizing the sun was slipping through their fingers, Thor did exactly what he always does. He paced the courtyard, sparks flying from his beard, his hand white-knuckled on the handle of Mjolnir. He wanted to hit the builder. He wanted to solve the problem with a concussion. But you can't smash a contract. The master builder was a guest. He was protected by the laws of hospitality and the very oath Odin had sworn. If Thor struck him, the oath would be broken, and the gods would lose their honor, and likely their lives. Thor was useless. Worse than useless, he was a liability. His presence only served to highlight the gods' impotence. Strength without strategy isn't a shield, it's just a target. The mighty god of thunder stood by, watching the sun get auctioned off, because he wasn't smart enough to read the fine print. With only 3 days left in winter, the panic in Asgard reached a fever pitch. The wall was almost done. The sun was beginning to pale, as if it knew its time was up. The gods gathered in the high hall, and the air was thick with the scent of ozone and fear. They didn't look to Thor for a solution. They knew he'd just start a war they couldn't win. Instead, they turned to the man they spent their lives mocking. they turned to Loki. Odin didn't ask for help with a plea. He didn't offer an apology for the mess he had created. No, he did what every failing manager does. He issued an ultimatum. He told Loki, "Fix this, or your life is forfeit." Loki hadn't signed the contract. Loki hadn't invited the builder. But Loki was the only one in the room whose brain was sharp enough to find the one loose thread in the giant's plan. He looked at the golden gods, at his brother Thor gripping a useless hammer, and he realized that if the world was going to be saved, the villain would have to be the one to do the dirty work. Loki knew the giant's secret wasn't his own strength. It was the horse. Svadilfari was the engine of the project. If the horse stopped moving, the stones stopped moving. But Loki couldn't just kill the horse. That would be a breach of the agreement. He had to distract it. Think about what a hero is willing to do. A hero is willing to die in battle. A hero is willing to bleed. But is a hero willing to be humiliated? Is a hero willing to lose their dignity for a world that hates them? Loki transformed. He didn't become a dragon or a warrior. He became a beautiful, emerald-eyed mare. He spent the final freezing nights of winter in the deep, ink-black woods, luring the stallion away from the construction site. This wasn't a prank. This was an agonizing, lonely, and profoundly undignified sacrifice. While the gods sat by their warm fires, counting the hours, Loki was in the dark, shedding his humanity to fix a mess made by the wise and the strong. He gave up his body and his reputation to ensure that when the sun rose on the final day of winter, it would still belong to Asgard. The deadline passed. The builder failed by a single day. In his rage, the giant revealed his true form, and that was finally a problem Thor knew how to solve. Thor killed the giant, taking the glory of the final blow. Asgard was safe. The sun stayed in its orbit. But Loki didn't return to a hero's welcome. He returned months later, exhausted, changed, and carrying a child. An 8-legged foal named Sleipnir, a living, breathing scar of the sacrifice he had made. And what was the response from the noble Aesir? They laughed. They mocked him for the form he had taken. They turned his trauma into a punchline. Odin took the child, the foal, and claimed it as his own personal mount, never mentioning the cost Loki had paid to bring it into existence. They erased the labor to protect the brand. Why do we still call Thor the hero? Because Thor is a brand. He's the Nepo baby of Valhalla. He's the son who gets a statue for breaking a vase because he looked cool while doing it, while the brother who glues it back together is kicked out of the room for being messy. Odin needs Thor to be the hero, so he doesn't have to admit he's a failing king. He needs a symbol of brute force to distract the people from the fact that their leadership is bankrupt. Loki is the fixer, and in any corrupt system, the fixer is the most hated person in the room. Why? Because every time the fixer saves the day, they are a walking, breathing reminder of everyone else's incompetence. They are the mirror that shows the gods how small they really are. This is how you manufacture a monster. You don't do it with a single act of evil. You do it with 1,000 years of unthanked service. You do it by forcing a man to sacrifice his soul to save your skin, and then mocking him for the scars he earned while doing it. Asgard wasn't destroyed by a prophecy. It was destroyed the moment the gods decided that the truth was less important than the image. Loki didn't choose to be the villain. He was drafted into the role by a family that refused to be honest. So the next time you see the golden spires of Asgard, or hear the thunder of Thor's hammer, remember the silence of the woods. Remember the man who wasn't allowed to be a hero because he was too busy being a solution. Asgard is a world where the mighty are those who never have to think, and the evil are those who can't afford to stop. But the gears of the great machine don't forget, and the debt of a brother is a heavy thing to carry. Next time, we leave the frost and the fog of the Aesir behind. We're heading south, to a mountain where the light is blinding and the family drama is even more lethal. We're going to look at a god who didn't just bet the sun, he tried to steal fire itself. If you think Odin's management was corrupt, wait until you meet the king of Olympus. The story of the gods is never about justice. It's about who holds the pen. And next time, we're rewriting the history of the Titans. Thanks for watching Mythmation. If you're tired of the fairy tale and ready for the truth, hit that subscribe button. The gold is always thinner than it looks. I'll see you at the foot of Mount Olympus.